Chapter 11. Haunting Pasts and Old Memories.
Sheesh. What is that stuff? Acid?
Said Sim, sitting on the dining room table.
Only the best for you, kid.
Said Otto, kneeling down as he cleaned out the bite marks on Sim's leg. Allie stood in the kitchen around the corner, soaking a dish towel in hot water from the sink. She looked through the doorway, over Sim's shoulder, to see Merrick carrying the young boy with Viola close at his side to the ambulance waiting out front.
Shouldn't we take him to the hospital too?
Asked Allie, looking over at Sim's leg.
Nah, he's not that hurt. He's been through worse. No point in bothering a doctor over a few house cat bites.
150-pound house cat.
Sim muttered. Otto chuckled as he continued to clean Sim's wounds.
So, were you attacked before or after you found the boy?
Neither. I found him while he was being attacked. I kicked the mountain lion off him, and it took a chomp at my leg. Then it fell over a cliff next to us and disappeared.
You kicked a mountain lion over a cliff?
Okay, it was more like a steep hill.
Allie walked back in from the kitchen and handed Sim the wet towel.
Here, you look like you could use this to wash your face.
Sim took the towel from her and wiped away the dirt and blood from his neck and arms. He winced in pain.
Rub some rust and dirt in there while you're at it,
said Sim as he scrunched his face.
Whiner. I think you'd be used to it by now, kid.
Otto wiped the alcohol pad across the last bite mark.
All right, why don't you go out next time and I'll patch you up after you come out. Assuming there's anything left of you.
Thankfully, I never have to. No offense, kid.
None taken.
Why is that?
I'm not trained to go venture into other worlds, while Sam is. He's the only one around here who knows how to survive across worlds. He knows how to think on his feet at a moment's notice.
Sim glared up at Otto. Otto glanced up at him and continued to clean his wounds.
And you're trained to manage the Ark?
Yep, as best as I can. Merrick's meant to serve as my replacement one day if anything happens to me. Okay, you're done. You'll need to stay off it for a little while,
said Otto, wrapping a bandage around Sim's leg.
Hopefully there's no alerts till then.
So who's set to be Sem's replacement in that case?
Asked Allie out of curiosity. Sim and Otto sat quietly for a moment, clearly ignoring her question with shifting eyes. Sim handed Allie the now dirty towel.
Think the kid'll make it?
Said Sim, hopping down from the table. Otto took a deep breath and shrugged. He stood up and piled the dirty bandages together.
Too early to tell. Depends on how fast Viola and Merrick can get him to the hospital. If you were even a minute later, I doubt he would have even had a fighting chance.
Grunted Sim, stretching his leg.
Careful, kid.
Otto grabbed Sim's arm and lifted it over his neck. Allie placed the dirty rag down on the table and grabbed Sim's other arm.
I need sleep,
said Sim as they hobbled over to the stairs. The three of them worked their way up the stairs, one step at a time. Sim winced with each step, feeling a sharp pain surge through his leg. They reached the top of the steps and turned the corner over to Sim's room. Allie let go of Sim for a moment and opened the door to help him inside. Sim's room was littered with clothes. Otto set Sim down on the side of the bed and let go of his arm. Allie looked around the room, noticing several paintings and artifacts resting on his shelves. Sim lay back on his bed and rested his head on his pillow.
Bed. Did I ever tell you how amazing you are?
Mumbled Sim, closing his eyes.
You gonna be all right?
Yeah. Just give me a few hours. Or maybe a few years.
Allie followed Otto out of the room, stopping briefly at the door to look at a picture on the end table that caught her eye. In a fine, decorated frame was a photo of an older man with pale blue eyes and long, dark gray hair, smiling at the camera. Sem stood under his right arm, and a woman with red hair and green eyes was wrapped under the older man's left arm. Allie gazed at the photo with a curiosity as to who the two people were.
I'll be up again in a few hours to check on your leg. Try not to move too much.
Sem's eyes were already closed. He was snoring, or pretending to snore. Allie slipped out of the room, and Otto shut the door behind her. Otto and Allie both walked back down the stairs, as Otto breathed a heavy sigh of relief.
I need a good stiff drink,
said Otto as he walked back toward the kitchen.
Care to join me on the porch?
Sure.
Allie replied, following him into the kitchen. Allie leaned against the wood railing on the back porch, watching the sun set behind the sky of bridges and islands. She gazed at the two suns on the horizon, seemingly bound to one another for eternity. The side door to the porch opened. Otto walked out with a glass and a bottle in his hands.
Glad to see this was still in the cabinet. Best brandy in Asphodel. Actually, it's the only brandy made in Asphodel. So there's not much of a competition. Saved by an old friend, especially for days like this. Care for some?
Allie shook her head.
I'm fine. Thanks, though.
Otto walked over to Allie and filled the glass of ice in his hand. He placed the bottle on the ground next to him and took a big sip from his glass. He leaned out over the balcony, next to her.
Amazing sight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's surreal.
That was my first impression, too. Thought I had died and gone to heaven at first. I kept asking myself every day when I woke up if it was all just one big extravagant dream. Some nights I even imagined I was home with my wife and daughters, only to wake up and still find myself here. It was like waking up from my own reality into a nightmare.
You had a family?
Have. I still do. They're out there somewhere, waiting for me to come home. A wife and 2 daughters.
Allie felt foolish for speaking in a past tense. She looked over at Otto, feeling compelled to ask more.
What are their names?
My daughters?
Asked Otto as he took another drink.
Yeah.
Otto crunched a piece of ice from his drink, looking out from the balcony with a smile on his face.
Zoe and Emma. My wife's name is Laura.
How old were your daughters when you...
Otto sighed and looked down at his drink.
I don't mean to pry,
said Allie, glancing down.
No, it's all right, kiddo. It's good to talk about them. Keeps me motivated to get that machine working the way we need it to.
Otto took another sip from his glass and looked up from the railing.
Let's see. Zoe was 18, just about ready to move off to college in Atlanta. Emma was 16 and still in high school.
Sem mentioned something about everyone being from different periods in time. What... Well, I guess I should say, when... No.
You want to know what year I'm from?
Yeah.
Well, it was 1985. No, 86. 1986.
Wow, that isn't too far off from my own time.
21st century. Am I right?
Yeah, how'd you...
Otto took another drink from his glass and chuckled.
I could tell right away when you arrived. After a while, you start to learn people's habits and mannerisms just being around them. Some people say, hey, while others may say, good morrow, friend. Some say awesome, while others may say radical. Some people walk with an old stick in their stride, while others walk slouched like they've been looking down at a cell phone for too long.
You could make a career out of guessing people's time periods. Almost like guessing people's weight.
Otto laughed.
With the way things are going, that sounds like a decent career choice.
Allie snickered and gazed back out to the horizon. It was the first time she had enjoyed a good laugh since she'd arrived in Asphodel. So far, it had been nothing but heart-stopping sights and emotional roller coasters.
So, where did you guys live?
Albuquerque. I worked at a private research center down there. My wife is a middle school teacher. Or at least I hope she still is.
Otto took a long sip from his glass and sat down on the chair behind him. He grunted as the strong aftertaste ran across his tongue.
I was 41 when I disappeared. The day still haunts me more than any other.
Allie watched him stare off into space, a doleful look in his eyes. The look of a devoted father left in longing to be home.
Zoe was packing up her things to move to her dorm at Georgia State. We rented a trailer to pack her things in, planning to leave on a road trip the following morning. My youngest Emma had just gotten her license and wanted to go hang out with her friends. Only we had told her no because I needed the car for work since our other car was filled with Zoe's things and hooked up to the trailer. So, later that day, after helping Emma pack, I had to get to work the evening shift to make up for the road trip. Only when I got down to the garage, I found Emma had taken the car anyway without our permission. We called her friend's mother on the phone, but she wasn't there, so I was left waiting for her to get back. Turns out she had snuck out to go see a new boy she liked. By the time she came home, I was already 2 hours late for work and had to call in to take the late-night shift. She argued with Laura and I for half an hour about the whole thing. We grounded her for a month from both the car and the phone. After that, she stomped up to her room, saying she hated us, never bothering to look back.
Otto took another drink, enjoying the strong, sweet taste once more.
Later the same night, I finally went to work feeling like I had been too harsh on her. I had said things I even regretted. I was watching the test results for a new energy project we were working on running a late-night test. The energy levels we were receiving read 0, even though everything was on and working as normal. So we all stood around, scratching our heads. I went to go check on the connections between our computer and the project. But, with my luck, I found out it was working far better than we expected. The power output was so great that it wasn't even reading on our computer. The data coming in was so far beyond our understanding and technology. Our computers had no way of monitoring it. It created enough power to open a small bridge from my world to another, directly in my path walking back to the test center. I suddenly felt like it was being dragged across the surface of an ocean, praying that moment would just end. I later woke up in what looked like a small fishing village in the Philippines. A fisherman brought me back to his house, gave me some clothes, and fed me dinner. All the while, unable to understand a word of what the other was saying. Sim's mentor, Erland, found me a few hours later and brought me back with him. The next day, I woke up in that very same room as you, to him trying to explain to me what had happened. Not long after, I told him about my job back home, and he was asking me to help him with the Ark. Since then, I've been working on that impossible machine downstairs every day of my life, only knowing half of what I can do in hopes it'll take me back to my family.
Allie stood, expressionless. She watched Otto drink the last of his brandy and lower his head.
I wish I took a moment before I left to tell my family how much I loved them. Just those few words would have been enough, and I probably wouldn't feel so terrible. Now they're all left thinking I'm dead, with no explanation of what happened to me or where I went. The thought of Zoe going off to college after her father disappeared, or Emma thinking I didn't love her, it breaks my heart.
I'm so sorry, Otto.
Allie muttered, expressing her sympathy. She felt choked up inside just listening to Otto's story. She now saw firsthand what Viola had told her. Just about everyone in Asphodel had lives they wanted to get back to. Otto rubbed his eyes and took a breath, trying his best to brush off his own sorrows.
Don't worry about it, kiddo. You have nothing to be sorry for. We're all here now, and it's no one's fault.
I can understand what it's like. My dad was my best friend too when I was a kid. He used to call me Spark, since we worked in the garage all the time on these old cars he bought. He taught me everything he knew about them. We both loved history. We'd quiz each other all the time as we worked, always sharing stories about moments in history we'd both learned that day. I almost chose history as my college major because of him.
Otto smiled, clearly hoping his daughters felt the same way about him.
Did you grow up in Philadelphia?
No, my family was from out west. I moved to Philadelphia for school following my asshole of a boyfriend from high school.
Allie looked down and began scratching away at the railing again.
The day I left, I was on my way home, late at night, from hanging out with a girlfriend of mine, Carly. I was being followed by a strange man who had been stalking me all day. He started following me from the bar, so I ran from him, trying to get away, and next thing I knew, I collided with someone standing on the sidewalk and fell into the street. I looked up, and all I saw was the headlights of a bus about to run me over, and next thing I knew, I woke up here.
Otto's eyes grew wide in surprise.
Wow. I guess you should consider yourself lucky, kiddo. Really lucky. That was 1 in a trillion chance right there. It's not every day an event like that saves a person's life.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Allie scratched at the wood banister, sinking into her own thoughts.
So what's Sem's story? I tried to ask him, but...
Otto hesitated. He got up, shaking his head, and grabbed the bottle off the floor.
He was an orphan. Came here when he was young, just like that boy he saved today.
Yeah, he mentioned that. I see why he seems so distant from everyone then.
Oh no, that's not the reason. His story's far more tragic than yours or mine, believe me. He's given up a lot in his life and lost so much more in return. I wish I could tell you more, but it's not my place to tell another man's life story. Ask him again sometime. That is, if he can muster up the strength to tell you.
Otto looked thoughtful in the silence.
I almost envy him, though. It's sad and unfair when they disappear at that young an age. But it makes life here easier. Sem hardly remembers his home world. Or so he says. This world is all he's ever known, while the rest of us have lives we all desperately want to get back to. And the longer we stay here, the harder it becomes to let go of our old lives and accept the new. We're forced to begin rebuilding our lives here, even though some of us don't want to.
Allie looked out ahead of her, watching the crowded bridges of people that connected the islands. The sight reminded her of her commute to work each day, riding the bus during rush hour, hoping there would be a seat for her. As much as she hated those days, she now missed them, knowing she might never go back. She lowered her head with a wishful expression.
As beautiful as it is, you're right. It's hard to let go of it all. You don't realize how much you miss something until it's gone.
Otto placed his hand on her shoulder.
Don't worry, kiddo. We'll all get home. I know we will.
Allie smiled at him, glad to have such caring company at her side.
Thanks, Otto.
Now, I think it's time we both get some rest. There's a boarding house close by for new arrivals where you'll be allowed to stay for as long as you need. The folks who own the place are great at helping people get back on their feet around here, while we work to figure out a way to send everyone home.
Sounds good to me,
said Allie as she made her way over to the balcony doors. She stopped and turned back around.
Hey, Otto.
Otto looked over at her, refilling his glass. He set the bottle back down on the floor.
Yeah?
Thanks again for everything you guys have done.
Thank me later, kiddo. Job's not over yet.
He raised his brandy glass in a toast. Allie smiled and shut the balcony door behind her. Otto walked toward the balcony, taking in the sunshine. He pictured the faces of his wife and daughters in his mind. Every detail he could remember, clear in his memory. He reached around behind him and pulled out a leather-bound journal tucked away in the waistband of his pants. He opened the journal to the page he had marked with a piece of paper and began reading it quietly to himself, sipping at his brandy.
I only hope you hold the answers we need, old friend.
Hey everyone, this is Abigail, the voice of Allie from SEM Adventures Across Time. If you've enjoyed your adventure so far, be sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/TS Wieland. With your support, you'll gain early access to the next chapter of the book and even a copy of the book itself. With your contribution, more thrilling and inspiring audiobooks can be made every day through the hard work, time, and dedication of voice actors and artists all across the world, including myself, all working together. From all of us here in the world between worlds, we'd like to thank you for joining us on our adventures.